City of Lloydminster regular council meeting of Monday, July 16th, 2018 to order. And at this time, we'll take a silent moment of personal reflection. As a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. Not seeing any at this time, I'll ask for additions or deletions to the agenda. Can I ask that item 8.3.2, request for council review, be moved to in camera?
I'll support that too.
That's right.
Take a step back. I meant to say I was kind of out of my element there for a second.
Just do it. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, go ahead. Let's see.
8.3.2 is a request under section 503 that has to be heard in public.
It does have to be. Okay.
The initial portion of it has to be heard.
Okay.
Just so council is aware.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Council Torres.
No, I was just going to say that 8.6.2 I'll need to be stepping out of the room.
Okay.
My apologies.
No problem. So noted. All right. Then the agenda stays as such. Then I will ask for approval of the agenda.
Motion.
Councilor Seconder, Councilor Buckingham. Any further comments on the agenda? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to item number 4, the approval of minutes of the previous meeting. I'll ask for council direction. Councilor Buckingham.
The regular council minutes dated June 25th, 2018 be approved.
Seconder, Councilor Pagman. Any further comments or discussion on those minutes? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Not seeing any. I'll move on to public presentations and acknowledgements. Item number 6. I don't have anything listed. All right. We have some public hearings scheduled for 2 o'clock, so we'll return to the agenda to 7.1.1 at that time. We'll move to number 8, new business. 8.1, bylaws. I'll to the city manager.
Good afternoon, Worship Council. For our first one on Lakeside, Phase 6, Stage 2 redistricting, I'll call Natasha from planning to come forward.
Good afternoon, Natasha.
Good afternoon, Your Worship Council. I'm here to present Bylaw 20-2018, and we're asking Council to grant first reading to Bylaw 20. Try this again. I'm here to present Bylaw 20-2018, a bylaw to redistrict all of Block 33, Block 16, on 1723446, and part of Block 3, Block F, Plan 1622841, and part of Southeast Quarter Section 26, Township 49, Range 1, west of the 4th Meridian, all within Southeast Quarter Section 26, Township 49, Range 1, west of the 4th Meridian, from R1 single detached residential and R3 row house residential to C3 neighborhood commercial, and the council established a public hearing to be held at City Hall, council chambers, during the regular council meeting on August 25th, 2018. In May of this year, we received an application to amend these lands. The developer has intention to build a professional commercial development similar in nature to the one that you see across the street. This proposal of redistricting is compatible with adjacent land use. Lands to the east are already C3. The remaining adjacent lands are R1. Administration has gone through the referral process in which no comments were received. There is no area structure plan in place for Lakeside yet. However, a proposed outline plan of land use concept is in place. Since that document hasn't been approved, or does not need to be approved by council, we don't need to amend it. On July 9th, this item was brought to GPC.
Nothing's changed since that
Nothing has
presentation on
changed.
July 9th. Any questions or comments, council? I just want to be sure, again, it's stated here, Natasha, that adjacent landowners were contacted to that proposed property and there was
Yeah,
no,
so according to our land use bylaw, whenever we make amendments on a subject property, we send letters to landowners within 30 meters of this.
so people, anyone that's adjacent to bought a property knows that it's
Correct.
potentially changing.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, Councilor Baker?
Just a quick question, when the people who are shown or told about this, do they know what's going there? The reason I asked, and I had 2 people ask me what was going there. You know, redistricting didn't really, I don't know what you sent them showing. And I said, well, I can't honestly tell you, but I imagine there's the corner gas station and the 7-Eleven type stores, but I don't know,
So
unless I missed something somewhere.
So across or to the east of this red where it says 11, that's where there is a proposed gas station. When we circulate the land use bylaw amendment to the landowners, we didn't include any information because realistically anything that complies with that section of the bylaw we could. We eventually went to our applicant and said, can you give us a little bit more information? Because we did have some general inquiries, what might this look like? So then, I don't know if someone can put up the proposed site plan. The developer sent us this proposed site plan, but when we approve the redistricting, we're not approving the site plan. I think it's one more page down.
Well, that was the question I was asked, and I couldn't answer the question.
Yeah, so generally what it will look like, my understanding from the developer, and this is for informational purposes only, like I said, we're not approving, it is going to be a professional center, similar like we see at 18th Street crossing that the developer has already done, and this will be more geared towards businesses, health practitioners, that kind of thing, opposed to convenience and gas, which is across the street.
Okay. This map wasn't sent to them.
No, this was acquired afterwards.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Natasha. I'll look to council for direction then on 8.1.1. Councilor Diachak.
The council granted first reading of bylaw 20-2018, being a bylaw for redistricting all of lot 33, lot 16, plan 1723446, and part of lot 3, block F, plan 1622841, and part of southeast 2649-1st, west of the 4th meridian, all within the southeast 26-49-1, west of the 4th meridian, R1, single detached residential, and R3, row house residential, and C3, general commercial. And the council established a public hearing held in City Hall Council Chambers during the regular council meeting on August 20th, 2018, 2 p.m.
Seconder, Councilor Buckingham. Any further discussion or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move back to City Manager for 8.1.2.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll ask our Chief Financial Officer, Denise McDonald, to present 8.1.2.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship Council. The City of Lloydminster is constructing a new wastewater treatment facility that it was approved in the 2018 capital budget. There's some grant funding that will be used towards the facility, and we've applied for additional grants. At this time, the grant funding will not be sufficient to cover the entire cost of the project, and the city will require to borrow the remaining funds. The construction, the borrowing bylaws must be approved prior to construction starting. And the process for a borrowing bylaw is to give it first reading. It's required to be advertised for 2 subsequent weeks and then held for 15 days in the event of a petition and brought back to council for second and third reading. So that takes us to August 20th. And so we would like to look at first reading of the bylaw at this time. And we've presented 2 options for council. One is for the 40 million and the second one is for 30 million. Keeping in mind that we will continue to apply for grants on this and apply, hopefully be looking at borrowing for a lesser amount. So this establishes the maximum amount. So we've put in for 30-year borrowing, but if we don't require that, we can always go less, we can't go more. In the event that the project comes in higher or we do not get grant funding and have to look at it again, say if we borrow 30 million and then have to come back, then we could do an amending bylaw and we'd have to advertise it all over again and they do second and third reading. And so it just extends the bookkeeping or administration of the project. So that being said, there's 2 options, borrowing at 40 million or borrowing at 30 million, and we've looked at 30-year borrowing requirement.
Questions, Councilor Torres?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I ran a few numbers here and I provided them to council so they knew what I was talking about while I was kind of going on a spiel here. But my first main question is, do we know whether or not the change in interest rates on Friday from the Bank of Canada will affect what we can get from Alberta Finance?
So this would, ACFA borrows quarterly, and so once we have everything done, the earliest we can borrow is December 20th. So a lot can happen.
Also, even, so the rates that are on here, it could go up between now and then, the interest rates that we're applying at, and then
Or
we're just,
down.
or could go down. So I guess, yeah, the question for me is, well, I guess that kind of puts some expediency into it somewhat, because we do have to try and deal with the fact that interest rates have been going up regularly, but you're saying they only adjust their rates quarterly.
They do, and we would know the rate when we put in the application.
Okay. So when we're saying that we can set the maximum term and the maximum amount, do we also set the maximum interest rate at that time too?
I believe we put in the borrowing 10%, but
Okay,
that's not.
it'll be some lesser number in the actual bylaw, it's a maximum number, but when we're doing this calculation, or like for the agenda report, you provided what the realistic numbers are for what they're actually providing as interest rates right now.
And typically ACFA is a lesser borrowing rate than a bank.
Right. Well, there was just a couple other things, because to me, and apparently from what you said, this changes everything of what I was thinking, because we can scale back 30 years or 25 years once we actually apply for the loan. So that would happen at that December, at that December 15th point.
Certainly. Or maybe we don't borrow in December, maybe we borrow in the first quarter in January. Depends on how much work was done and how much grant money comes in.
Okay. So basically everything I prepared, gang, is I didn't realize that there was that much flexibility, that we're just setting the high-end thresholds, and then realistically you work back to whatever you actually need and whatever interest rate you actually get.
I also was told that now they have a new option where you can lock in your rate. So if you're speculating that the rate is going up, we can lock it in and not actually borrow it, but get it at that rate. And so like I have to do a little bit of research on what that commits us to for payments and timing.
Right.
But sounds like there's a new option at ACFA that I wasn't aware of.
Okay. Some of the other things that I, kind of just did a rough calculation of was total interest paid between at least the 2 options we did here, and for whatever reason I didn't print that, but So it's a difference of $5.5 million over the term if you do 30 million versus 40 million. I understand that other 10 million, we have to get that grant money, otherwise we have to take that loan separately later. And again, interest rates could go up by that time, so you're taking some level of risk if you choose to do the 30 million rather than the 40 million. But the question is whether or not it's worth it and whether we can afford to do that. And I'm in the opinion that I think we can afford to take the risk for that other $10 million. You know, our debt servicing limit is going up this year for the 2018 year because of our change in our financial strategy. It's going up by a significant amount, according to my estimation. So that if we did do a 30-year, and you know, our payments, our annual payments will be 1.5 million. You know, that only takes us to a new debt servicing percentage of 22%, whereas right now we're at 16% if you looked at our financial statements. So it's really not that bad. You know, if there was a rule of thumb number that municipalities try to stick to that I found, it's somewhere between 80 and 60%. You don't want to go over that, otherwise you can't service your debt. And the fact that we're going to be sitting at potentially 22.8% if we do the 30-year, or at 25.3% if we do the 30 million versus the 40 million, would be 25.3%. So it's kind of a tough chicken egg thing, because at the end of the day, we could apply for the loan, and I worry that it signals to grant funders that they don't need that other 10 million because they can handle it on their own. Whereas we would really prefer to get that grant funding for that other 10 million.
I did make a phone call to transportation and talked to one of their advisors there, and she said, I said, you know, what is the case if we put forward this borrowing bylaw and then saying, well, okay, they're prepared to borrow, therefore no more grants. And she said they would understand that you would be looking at borrowing and that you have to do your borrowing criteria in order to start the project. And I believe we're getting some pressure to start the project. So she said she didn't think that that would hinder or set up a perception that we wouldn't be interested in more grants or shut us down for more grants.
Okay.
So if I could, Councilor Baker, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the biggest challenge that this council will ever have, or a few councils down the road, to deal with this wastewater treatment plant. Like Councilor Jonathan, I went through it and did my calculations and back and forth trying to figure out how is it going to impact our city. But I do have a question. On page 1 of the report, it said the Alberta Capital Finance Authority current interest rate on 30-year borrowing is 3.14.8% and subject to change quarterly. So are they saying that, what are they really saying? Is that a fixed rate if you signed on for 3.148? Is that a 30-year fixed? What is this saying?
That's what I believe it is, through the Chief Financial Officer, if we were to sign it today, Councilor Baker. But if we don't sign it today and we wait till December 15th, that rate could change, but that is the fixed rate for 30 years. Whatever the rate is that we take it, that is a fixed rate, is what I understand.
Okay, but whatever we sign for will be fixed for 30 or 40 years. It's not a floating rate.
We don't know that at this time.
Oh.
That's just the current rate right now. So we would be required to submit.
No, maybe in December it'll be 4%.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know that.
But if we sign at 4%, then it's 4% for the life of the mortgage, is that?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Your Worship, like Councilor Donovan and I went through it and looked at our annual payments and what it really means to the taxpayer in the city. And I stand to be corrected on every one of these numbers by finance and chartered accountants here to straighten me out. But bottom line, if we were to borrow $30 million And if we have a population of 31,000, don't know exactly, it doesn't really matter. For argument's sake, the per capita per annum is probably about $50 for every man, woman, and child in the city. So for a family of 5, it's a $250 bill a year towards, if you just base it on the resident and the population. If we go for 40 million, my numbers show about $67 per capita per person per year. And like I said, I stand to be corrected on all of this. But the bottom line is, that's if we don't have 1 cent of revenue coming in from anywhere else. In other words, the utility is not paying anything back to operate the utility or to pay capital towards the utility. And we've always said that the utility, it's nice to believe it can pay for itself, but it can't necessarily always pay for itself when you get major capital of this nature. But the professionals will figure that out in due course. But I think what's important today that people understand, if we can pay back through the operation of the utility towards capital, just like our land account, if we can, and again, I don't have any real facts, but if we could pay half that back through operating the utility, that would have quite an impact on the individual families and taxpayers within our city. I would think so. They're already paying utility. And out of that utility, I would believe, when you look at the total sewer and water program, I believe that's the way our administration looks at it. We have potable water, we have wastewater, we have stormwater, we have bulk dispenser sales, and we have service supplied to other municipal jurisdictions. Those are all potential sources of revenue, somewhat, on the operation of that. How much it takes to operate it, how much can be applied to the capital, I don't have any idea. But I think if I found some numbers, I would sure work on that. And I think the recovery from sales is critical. If we're going to go out and sell services outside the city, we've got to make sure we're well immersed for them and everybody's paying their fair share, because there's more to providing water and sewer than the cost of running it through the pipes. We've got to pay for that plant, as you can well see, and I think that those things really have to be thought through before we go beyond our borders. I asked myself the question, like many, do we need an $80 million plant? Can we build a plant for $70 million? And it's based on the idea is, it's a changing economy in Lloydminster. It's not how it was 5 years ago. Is the population going to grow at 3% annually every year for the next 15 years like it has, or how many years it is? Or is it going to slow down? Is there going to be the demand? How big have we got to build this plant? Do we need a plant that will service 50 years from now? Or do we add a module 20 years from now? I don't have those answers. But I really hope that we will investigate those. I'm in favor of what you're doing today at $30 million. I am in favor without the $40 million argument. But it's, to me, is the growth has to be realistic. Is there growth? Are we overbuilding? I can't tell. I don't know enough about sewage treatment plants to tell you, to answer those questions. But I think that's really, really important that we do that. So, based on the numbers, and if we can recover, if we can, then I'm sure that our managers will be working on it. What kind of recovery to pay this debt off won't be just off the property tax, it'll be off other services that are going to use these particular services. So, based on that, I'm in favor today, at least of getting the application for a minimum of $30 million. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councilor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councilor Baker brought something up that I wanted to ask as well, is what's the estimated useful life of the plant?
that the manager
This
saying?
is 45.
Oh, it's 45. Okay. Sorry, but my understanding even was up to this point that it's 45 but needs more upgrades and additional capital 10, 15 years from now to get you to 45?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. So the useful life is that 45, but the expansion or requirement for expansion is based on growth. So as growth expands, we'll determine whether you need to add another train, as Councilor Baker spoke to, maybe 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, 15 years. It all depends on the amount of fluid coming through that facility. But ultimately, the design, what we're designing for based on growth projections would be around that 20 to 25 year with some additional capital required at that time. But the lifespan of what we're talking about, the equipment lifespan is that 45 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Councilor Buckingham?
Thank you, Your Worship. We've been looking at this for a long time. Even though we're 2 years into our term as council, it's been there since day one. So looking at all the design specs and everything else, I believe we are designing the right plan. I think we are going down the right road for what needs to happen. A couple things I just wanted to have said publicly that some people just have asked me about that I don't think they knew. The first of them being, we're talking about years of life and lifespan for these plants. It's worth noting that our current plant is way past its lifespan. It's way past 10 years, Dawn, more or less, past its lifespan, or 10? Yeah, 5 to 10 past its lifespan. And it's not being replaced because it's not currently doing the job it was designed to do. When that plant was built, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's that the regulations of what is allowable to go out have all changed. So we've got our useful life and then some out of the plant that we currently have. And a lot of people ask about that. I don't think they realize that that is actually the case. It's not that the plant's failing and that we're polluting the environment because of a failing plant. The plant's doing what it's supposed to do. But these requirements have changed and will most likely continue to change as we go forward. And this plant and all the specs that I've seen are capable of foreseeing change and not having a large unforeseen expense come up 5 years or 10 years into the lifespan of a brand new water treatment facility. You know, we're behind the 8 ball, no doubt about it, as far as timelines to get this thing up and running, which is why, of course, this has come up today. But I just wanted to have those things out there because there are questions that have been asked. So hopefully some clarity on a few of those things.
Councilor Dutch?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Your Worship, just to add, I guess, what your Councilor Buckingham saying. I think, first off, I think we've been at this for a bit, and I think the prior council was at it for a bit before even us having to look at different models and achieving the standards that are set not by us, not by the province, but by the federal government in terms of what those standards are. And I think we deal with the facts that we have today, and as pointed out, we're seeing even in the north, there's a study that's looking at the Buffalo National Park, one of the largest parks in northern Canada, and what they're seeing is with the change in water flow and whatever, that there's more tundra that's being sort of being exposed, and the wildlife is changing, and finding more hydrocarbons and whatnot, and that occurs naturally, but as well as being distributed by all the industries upstream, whatever. And so I think more than ever we're going to see an eye on quality of water. We brag about the fact that we have probably, I think, the largest amount of fresh water in the world in this continent or this country. And I think that standard is, if anything, is going to go up. The pressures that we've had, the meetings that Your Worship you've had, I don't want to see you get fitted up for the suit with the stripes, nor do I want to see our city taxpayers be fined millions of dollars, and that only comes from taxes. And so I agree, we are behind the 8 ball in terms of we need to get on with it. I don't know what more information we can possibly have, and I guess I put it back to city administration if there's any other information that anybody's aware of at this point, but I think it's time to get on with it. And I really believe that, there are a couple of options. One is the 40 or the $30 million. I guess The upside is with the 40 is you don't have to borrow 40 if you don't need to. And you don't have to come back and do another bylaw. And I guess that if that saves time, then I'm in for saving the time. It doesn't mean you have to spend the money. It just means that the capacity is there, and ultimately, I believe that we'll still be making that final decision on the amount that's borrowed, or that process, whatever that process is. So I guess I would say, you know what, let's do the 40 and get on with it.
Thank you, Manager Spring, and then I'll get to Councillor, you have a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Councillor Buckingham said. Obviously, the regulatory requirements imposed through the changes is what we're failing to be able to meet with the type of infrastructure we have for the wastewater treatment plant. The facility is at capacity as well, so I just wanted, we've had a lot of growth over the last 20 to 30 years. The design wasn't meant for the amount of growth we've received, so we are pushing meeting regulatory requirements. We are very close, if not achieving our full capacity. So we have used that infrastructure to its absolute maximum. So just wanted to add to that.
Thank you, Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I had a lot of really bright ideas when we came in today, but so far everything I've heard is, pretty straightforward for me. It's, if you apply for the 40, just like Councillor Diachuk was saying, that doesn't mean you have a $40 million loan, and it doesn't mean you're taking the wrong strategy in terms of approaching that, because as far as grant funding, whether we apply for 40 right now or 30, it's not going to change their decision making. That was one of my big concerns. It won't be an issue. Whether we decide to do a 30-year borrowing or a 25-year, well, we apply for 30, but we really don't have to make that decision yet, because we can find out later on how much that's actually going to be, and then we can make the decision at that time whether 30 or 25 makes more sense, and whether or not the interest benefit per year is more beneficial to go with a lower one or not, and whether we can hang with the higher payments. So right now we don't even have to have that kind of nailed down, but from what I'm understanding is having this go through today will result in a December 15th earliest borrowing date, which is a long time from now still. So we have to get on our horse and do this, because we don't have another council meeting till mid-August, which means we're talking about January 15th or January 30th before we do that, and that adds another 45 days to an already tight timeline and a short construction season that happens soon after that. So it makes a lot of sense, I think, to go with the $40 million option today.
Is there any type of penalty for early payoff? Or no, there's not? Just say for some reason in 10 years the city comes into some great infrastructure and we have more revenue and we wanted to pay off some of this debenture earlier, is there a penalty to us in terms of that?
Yes, there is a stop loss penalty, and it's dependent on the interest rate. So say the interest rate goes up and we decide to pay it off,
right?
Then ACFA can, or if we're say at 3% or something, they would be able to resell it to someone else. However, if our interest rate is high and we pay it off and they have to sell a high interest rate to someone else because the interest rate went down, it would be difficult for them to resell, and so you'd have to pay that interest difference.
Okay.
So I'll take one more kick. No one else has anything else to say. To bring council up to speed. As of this coming week, I have a meeting planned on Wednesday night in Edmonton, one Thursday morning, hopefully with the Premier at a Premier's breakfast, and 2 meetings the following Monday with administration and the Deputy Mayor, with the Minister of Infrastructure federally, to press this matter to the fullest extent. Administration and I discussed this matter before it got on the agenda. And for timeliness, we have to move this forward sooner or later. And if we leave this and leave it, as we discussed, into August, September, and then we have to go through the public hearings, I want to make sure the public fully understands and give them a chance to be aired out over the rest of the summer, basically trying to help them understand what we're doing here. We have 2 options, 30 million or 40 million. Either one does not have to be exercised to the fullest. If we do need 40 million, I don't want to have to come back a second time, was my thought, because it's going to create more confusion. Why didn't we do it right the first time? The question that we're often asked by members of the public and taxpayers. If you're going to make something happen, do it right the first time. The 40 million, I hope we don't even come close to it. I hope we don't even touch 30 million. But if we don't cover ourselves at the front end, we're going to be going back to explain to taxpayers and the government and everything else why we've delayed this. Where we've laid our cards on the table and said, if that's what it takes, we'll do it. We sure don't want it to be, and that's the message we're going to be conveying in those various meetings. We need the governments of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the federal government to step up to the promises that we've heard in the media for years and years. We'll see where that takes us. I don't have that answer. I hope that by the time this council reconvenes in August, my fingers are crossed, my toes are crossed, and hope that somebody makes a decision in Ottawa, Regina, and Edmonton, and then we can move forward completely. So, but if we don't take the initial step at our end, we're going to be the ones blamed for holding this up. And I do not want to be the ones. We can go back each and every day and show the federal Minister of Environment, the Saskatchewan Minister of Environment, we've been doing our due diligence, moving this forward as best as we can with the resources we have. I had a chance to speak to the Minister of Environment in the city a couple weeks ago when he was here. He understands. He clearly understands. But we have a second partner, the federal government, in this process. And I'm trying to get a meeting with Minister McKenna personally in late August. We're in Ottawa. I'm still waiting for an answer back from her office, so I'll be pursuing that one continuously. But we've got to raise this issue. Our MPs have carried it forward to Ottawa. Our MLAs have carried it to Regina and Edmonton, but we're still going through the process. So I truly believe the 40 million is our best option to show that we are prepared to make this happen if the governments of Canada and the governments of Saskatchewan and Alberta aren't prepared. Councilor Baker?
Thank you, Richard. I have a question you brought up, and I'm fine with, if we're not signing a deal, it could be whatever. Because we want to know the interest rate. It's like knowing the mill rate when you're setting the budget. It's no different. At this time, if we were going to go to tender on this plant, how soon could we go to tender? Just best guess. 6 months, 2 months, 4 months?
Yeah, we'd be in probably 4 to 6 months through the integrated project delivery model.
4 months from now is pretty much Christmas, right? Well, not quite.
So
My question is, Your Worship, we may be building this at one of the best times if we have to build it. From a standpoint of tradesmen and people and experts that want to do, I don't know that. But I heard as late as last Friday, one of the largest electrical companies in Alberta is shutting down for lack of work. Company out of Calgary, huge electrical work, 500 electricians out of work. Those kind of, and somebody's pain is somebody's gain, unfortunately. But maybe we'll be part of helping the economy a little bit too. And if you call for tenders when it's 40 below, that's when you buy a boat. You don't buy in July when it's 35 above. So in your thought process, I'm sure you've got this all under control, Mr. City Manager. But if we're going to move, and I'm really happy we're at this day, because I've heard many, many years about this issue. And I believe down the road, there are some people out there that manage higher levels of government than we do, that understand better than some of the people that we've been dealing with. To download that kind of a load on small communities, and I asked the question 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, how many other communities are in exactly the same boat?
I'm actually trying to get a fix on that.
I know you are, but I'll bet you there's lots of them. And we're going to break our smaller communities if we don't get the help yet. We know what's going on at the federal level. You look at the news every day and the money's going all over the world, but it's certainly not coming to the municipalities in Canada that I know. So I'm in favor of it, and I'm saying if we make this decision today, as soon as we can get it arranged, we should be going to tender. Right or wrong, I have no stars that tell me it's the thing to do, but I believe it is. And get on with this thing and get it tendered when the prices are probably going to be as competitive as they ever will. How many people are in this business that build these kind of plants? I have no idea. But I'm sure our consulting engineers would be able to get us, or already have it, I've given you a list of potential bidders. And to me, it's a specialized business, I would think. So it may not be as rosy as I'm hoping, but
I think, Councillor, to answer some of your questions, you're absolutely right. The economy at the point it is in Alberta, and even Saskatchewan, is at a very good point to be constructing. I guess that I can reassure from my perspective, because it'll go to the city clerk and myself to sign the contract when it's there. I won't sign it until we have the federal and provincial governments with ink on paper saying how much money they've committed to, and I think that's what the important part. This is all subject to getting the final grant approval. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. You're absolutely right. I think that from our point, in my mind, is that construction will start in May of 2019 in the perfect world. That's what we're shooting for. We were hoping to do that in 2018, but it didn't happen. That's the message we've conveyed to the government, saying we all know when construction works best. It's best to not pour concrete in January or February. If we can get into it in May, that'll give us time to finish our design, tenders and all that in the integrated project delivery model complete, get all the players to the table, we'll be able to take off and move forward. Because we have a timeline we're trying to meet with the federal government that was imposed on us, as you have mentioned before. So I think that's the important part. So I think that we've got to take the first step, as we've done each and every time so far, leading this thing with the governments. We'll get them to the water sooner or later. It might not be, maybe if we sponsor the bottled water in Parliament and the legislatures, they'll get our point, but we'll talk about that in the course. But I think that really it's up to our council to make the first move again, as usual, and move this forward as best as we can, waiting for our federal and provincial partners to come fully to the table.
And Your Worship, I'd like to thank you for all the hard work you've done on this file. It's probably one of the toughest files we'll face in a long time because of the big numbers involved. So,
well, we're not done yet.
Well, no, but
thank you.
We've come a long way.
Well, we have, but I can see the finish line, but we're not there yet. So until we cross that finish line, we'll go from there.
But thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other comments from council before I ask for direction? I'll look to council for direction on 8.1.2. Councilor Dutch.
This is a big one. The council instructed administration to borrow $40 million for the mechanical wastewater treatment facility and grant bylaw number 21-2018 mechanical wastewater treatment facility bylaw first reading.
Second. Councilor Baker?
Is the second combined?
Oh, they're combined. Okay, sorry, I'll get you to continue on.
And the council also instructed administration to advertise the proposed borrowing bylaw for 2 consecutive weeks prior to second and third reading, following final reading of the bylaw, and subject to a 30-day appeal period for borrowing, resulting in December 15th being the earliest borrowing.
All right. Councilor Baker, second?
Sure, you bet.
Okay. Any further questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. At this time, I would like to return back to the agenda and move back to 7.1, which is the public hearing. At this time, I've got this lady over shop 2 o'clock hour. So, bylaw 16-2018 amendments as per the Municipal Government Act. I would like to note before we begin that during a public hearing, we ask that you respect the views of everyone here and allow each person their time to speak without interruption. Each person wishing to speak has up to 5 minutes to make a presentation to council. If you do wish to speak, please state your name for the record and whether you are in support or opposed to the proposed bylaw. When you are finished speaking, please remain at the front as councilmen wish to ask you questions. All discussions of council members, city staff, and delegations shall be directed to the chairperson. Any questions brought forward by the public which are not able to be addressed during this meeting will be done so at the next council meeting. Council will not debate this matter during the hearing, and the decision regarding whether or not to grant the bylaw further readings will be dealt with following the public hearing. I declare the public hearing for bylaw 16-2018 amendments for the Municipal Government Act open at 2:15 p.m. I would ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not the public hearing has been advertised in accordance with the applicable legislation and to summarize the purpose of this hearing.
I can confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This public hearing was advertised in the Meridian Booster on June 26th and the Meridian Source on July 5th. The purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 16-2018 being a proposed amendment to the land use bylaw.
I will now call upon anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw. As no members of the public were in attendance to speak on the matter, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 16-2018 closed at 2:16 p.m. Now we'll move on to agenda item number 7.2, second and third reading of bylaw. City Manager.
I'll call the attachment from planning and development to handle 7.2.1.
Thank you again, Your Worship and Council. We're here to ask Council to grant the second and third reading to bylaw 16-2018, being a bylaw to amend the text of the land use bylaw 5/2016 to incorporate the necessary changes pertaining to the recent amendments that have been made to the Municipal Government Act. On October 26, 2017, the province of Alberta approved 3 orders and councils proclaiming the majority of the amendments to the MGA into force and effect on October 26, 2017, January 1st, 2018, and April 1st, 2018. These proposed amendments to Land Use Bylaw 5/2016 include changes that were made as of October 26, 2017. Changes that were made in January and April of this year have no effect on our Land Use Bylaw. Bylaw 16/2018 was read for the first time by Council on June 25th, 2018, and advertised accordingly. Since this time, no changes have been made to the bylaw. A summary of the changes include clarification to advertising, subdivision applications, and development applications. These amendments are administrative in nature, and will just add clarity to our process to align with the MGA.
Thank you, Natasha. Any questions? Again, there's housekeeping matters that need to be done to keep up with the provincial regulations. Councillor Buckingham.
Move that council grant bylaw 16-2018 being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw to include Municipal Government Act amendments, second reading.
Seconder. Councillor Rowe. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Buckingham.
The council grant bylaw 16-2018 being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw to include the Municipal Government Act amendments, third and final reading.
Seconder. Councillor Buckingham. Councillor Forrest. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Natasha. Moving back to the agenda, 8.2.1, to the City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item on the agenda is the sister city agreement with Nikopol, Ukraine. On May 25th, 2018, the city received correspondence from Alberta Council proposing that the city of Lloydminster and City of Nikopol, Ukraine join as sister cities in order to, or I guess the communities often seek to further relationship by joining as sister communities and lead to community exchanges and promote the development of relationships based on sharing culture, economic, educational, and diplomatic opportunities. Nikopol has a population of 117,000 and was founded in the Dnipro region of Ukraine. It has an elected government, which consists of a mayor and 42 councillors. The City of Lloydminster, in September of 1996, entered into an inter-city friendship relation twinning agreement with the City of Zilhot, China, which is located in Inner Mongolia. At the July 9th, 2018 GPC meeting, it was recommended that the sister city agreement with Nikopol, Ukraine, be brought forward to council for decision, and we'll take any questions from there.
But to Administrator for Council, if there's any questions or comments? Councilor Baker.
Your Worship, I spoke of this in the past. We were, and I know because I was here at the time, we were going to be a sister city with Zilhot I think it was Middle Mongolia, they called it. And really all that happened, they made a trip out here, about 5 or 6 gentlemen. And they went home and our mayor made a trip over there and that was the end of it. So whether there's an advantage or, I don't know what they are, and I don't know what the costs will be, but there will be some cost, and I just wondered if there was value. Just a question, because I don't know.
Well, I'll take a crack at that, Councillor, from the perspective to answer that question. The community, I understand, has energy development there, both oil and natural gas. And I believe there might be some opportunities that will open doors for local businesses here directly through our city relationship. Certainly there's provincial economic development, we have city economic development, there's federal economic development, but Canada and the Ukraine signed an agreement just a couple of years ago, and no community has exercised any relationship to this point, such as this, from Canada to the Ukraine or vice versa. And this will be one of the first, this will be the first from Canada if we do approve this agreement today. I spoke to Alberta Council this morning, and I understand the mayor from the Ukraine is planning on coming to the Lloyd Heavy Oil Show and bringing a delegation to our oil show if this agreement is signed, if the twinning agreement does go through. So, not a guarantee, but that's certainly, so I think that there's already interest there, certainly a great deal of interest from their side. And we have an opportunity, if it means one more job created in this city through, or keeps a job in the oil and gas industry that's been feeling a lot of economic pressure, I would be gladly to support this. You're absolutely right. There are going to be some costs, and we will address those as they come up before this council so that it's open and clear that money is being spent. But certainly, as I would host any other dignitary from anywhere else, we would offer to host them as a dinner possibly, something like that. But again, that will be brought forward at that time to council so it's clear. We have spent a little bit of administration time, which for legal and ensuring that this is something that fits our plan and does meet it. We're not committed to anything financially to commit monies to them outside the city.
George, I think what's important, I didn't really get much out of the letter from the consulate. I mean, it's just, we should be sister city. Like, that's okay, but it's our job to, why are we doing this? You know, having the connection with oil and gas, I wouldn't have been aware of that. And I think that's a really good connection. And it's even better when there's a potential for the folks from there coming to the oil show here in 2 months or whatever it is, or a month from now. So, but thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this is another one where I think it actually doesn't tie us to spend absolutely anything. When anything comes up that could potentially have dollars attached to it, it could come before council and we could look at each individual potential plan independently and give it appropriate attention and transparency and everything like that. So right now, to sign the agreement, it's very low risk and I don't imagine there will be significant costs and there could be huge economic benefits. So, the other side is not just, people coming over here, but it's, who could we bring, who can be sent there that could bring some of their technologies, their ideas back. When you talk about a diversified economy, they've got 10.5 million euros invested in solar in the area. So, is there something there? It's one of those open-ended questions where we can look at the specific proposal later on and see whether or not it's worth our time to send someone over there, or whatever the plan ends up being. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be that, but I like that it's low risk, high reward, and I don't think there will be a significant cost attached to it either. So it's a great idea. Thank you.
Sure. I guess the only other thing I was thinking about is we have someone now in economic development, and I guess this could be one of the tasks to look at what are all the industries and that are playing a field, and to what extent is there alignment to trade and all those other pieces where we can have that homework done. And I guess we can work with the council as well to set sort of get those lines, whether or not see how much there's alliance between what we do and what they do, and whether there's some opportunity in business. But I think it'd be good to have our economic development on. Let's do all the homework before we actually get to the point of meeting it here.
Absolutely. I think that's, once if this agreement passes, I think economic development will play a key role involved in this process moving forward. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll look to council for direction on 8.2.1. Councilor Pike.
The council approved the city of Woodminster enter into agreement with the city of Nikopol, Ukraine as a sister city.
Seconder. Councilor Torson. Any further questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.3, the office of the city clerk. With the city manager to the city clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item up is 8.3.1, the draft flag and banners policy. And the recommendation is the council approve policy number 110-02, flags and banners. The city does not currently have a policy regarding the flying of flags and banners. And council last saw this item on July 9th, 2018 at the GPC. And there's been no changes in the policy since that time. The options for council is the council approve policy number 110-02, flags and banners. The council not approve the policy, or the council send it back to administration for further information. The policy is a new policy and as such will not replace any existing policies.
Thank you, City Clerk. Any questions or comments from council? This item has, thank goodness, been to GPC a couple times and we've worked it through. I think I appreciate the opportunity because the mayor's office gets requested quite regularly for various things, and that would help us to have some clear policy from administration that council's endorsed from that perspective. Council Baker.
Your Worship, I don't know if I got this all straight. It's quite a lengthy. I didn't know you could write so much about flags. We're putting certain flags on the east side, certain flags on the west side. Where are we going to put our community flags? I mean, I've always been a believer that service clubs, if it's, pick a service club. We've always had a pole to fly their flag for, whether it be United Way or whatever. Is that in here somehow?
So what we've left that with is to the banner council. The 6 flags at City Hall are dedicated to 6 flags that are going to be permanent.
Why are we eliminating our local service clubs, volunteer service clubs? Like I just asked the question. Why are they being eliminated and bringing in new people on a permanent basis? Why are we doing that? Why would we eliminate our service clubs?
The problem we have with the service clubs is that the challenge we've got is who is a service club and who isn't. That's one of the questions that have been asked from my office, and how do we determine that? So does it become the mayor's choice of whose flag flies? Is it the administration's choice of whose flag flies, or does it have to come to council 52 times a year as to whose flag flies? That's one of the challenges that we've experienced. The other is, it kind of falls into the proclamations that we've also been working through. We've had multiple proclamations, so where does the city stand? Are we proclaiming it's week of A, B, and C, or is it a day of A, B, and C, whatever that group may be, or organization? And one of the challenges we've got is we've tried to find some middle ground where the banner that hangs downtown on 50th is available and is prescribed as such in our direction. There's times when there's no other flag flying at City Hall. There is times that flags do. What we've tried to do is meet a halfway point where there's standardization at City Hall, but at the same time meeting, and that's coming through in the proclamations. As we sit down with people of all the groups that have asked for proclamations in the past, they will be addressed by City Hall and trying to make that perspective. But what comes to this council and what flies at City Hall, we've tried to standardize it from that perspective rather than it being on both sides. Because we've been trying to please as many people as we can, but we're not pleasing everybody. And that's a challenge. And this way, if we set it in stone, this is what we are doing at City Hall. The banner is available for, and it lays it out. It's quite a process. I've asked, the administration went back a long ways, as we saw at the last GPC. Even the Canadian flag has some protocols that I think we all learned a lot about. So it's trying to find that happy medium to ensure that everyone is recognized. At what point is City Council and the City Hall? We've seen a lot of the other communities actually go away from flag raising completely. It's something I've noticed talking to mayors in Saskatchewan, Alberta, especially at the city level. They're not even flying flags anymore for anyone other than the 5 or 6 flags that fly continuously. that's the flags that the city's doing. They're going away from proclamations because it seems if you proclaim for one, a group is disappointed because you didn't proclaim for another, and overlap. So this is trying to bring some standardization to the flags. It doesn't solve the problem that you're saying, but at the same time, we want to ensure that we give those groups the recognition that they deserve, and certainly those requests will come to City Hall. I'll try to facilitate whatever they're looking for. If they're proclaiming whatever group that week, from that perspective, are looking for some acknowledgement in the public, I'll certainly support that from my chair as the mayor. But to simply have this going every week and then trying to decide, because administration's been challenged numerous times, well, we'd like to fly our flag and they're flying their flag, so who is it? Is it first here? Things like that. So we've tried to bring some consistency to that to ensure that it's fair to all concerned. I hope that answers your question.
Well, I guess I call it community service.
Yep.
Some things you do that take a little bit of time, you just do it. It doesn't have to be, everything doesn't have to be in policy.
No,
You know, United Way, for example, every year they have their United Way flag, and that kicks off there. And for the most part, the news media has put them on the front page with the flag flying and the mayor there, and we think it's a good thing. And I guess we can get so official that we don't do anything. Yet, the volunteer groups are such a large part of our community. What you classify as a group, I guess you have nonprofits. You have a rule on nonprofits, and if they have a flag like Big Brothers, I just find it's a wonderful thing. Whether it's the olive tree, and these people that do so much good in this community, we can give a little publicity to them through a flag raising. I think it's a good thing. Yet we'll fly flags that hang there year round, nobody even knows they're up there. Yet we eliminate these groups. So I feel strongly about that, but that's okay.
no, I appreciate that, and do note, Councillor, I, from my chair, commit to all those groups to give them whatever support to ensure in our office and the media team, through communications, to ensure that the media does get those coverage that they need to promote that. Certainly the flag raising was one opportunity, but I believe we've got some options that will also give them that opportunity to be highlighted and get the notice they deserve in the community. Thanks, Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just in response to Councillor Baker's comments, I totally understand where you're coming from, but my interpretation of this policy is very much to standardize that flags are kind of more of a government symbol rather than it is for various groups, and this, you know, identifies the governments in power and the partners that exist for the city of Lloydminster. And the part that comes with banners is that is our way to recognize all those groups. So they are still going to get the same kind of recognition, it just won't specifically be a flag. And we've also, you know, through this entire process, as far as I understand, is we've said continuously, we'll continue to support the efforts of what the, you know, not-for-profits and the service groups are doing within the city, as well as help by using our media arm to, you know, advertise on social media for them whenever something's coming up. So I think that those partnerships are still there. We still recognize what they're doing. It's just not a flag, it's a banner now. So I think it's kind of it's really the same thing, other than giving proper respect to flags in this scenario. Thank you.
Anyone else, comments? Councillor Batchy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of torn around this piece, but I guess the other part I also see is that the list of organizations that really, or dates that, you know, around flags or whatever, I think that we had shared or was presented in the document. There's one for literally every single day of the year that you could be out there running up and down with the flag. My choice would be, is that where I want my mayor to be spending an hour and a half every day? And I would say, I guess if the mayor wants to do that, God bless her, but I think there are other things to do, and it's not to be disrespectful of all the groups, because Lord knows we wouldn't be surviving without them, but I think what we're seeing is that there's so many different organizations and so many different days. At some point, you have to decide that you cannot do them all.
I think our recognition policy that Council covered off earlier gives it, again, some direction to the city and works with all those groups to ensure that we will get that recognition. Council Baker's question, based on your comments, I appreciate that. By all means, every one of those groups have in the past had my support and will continue to get my support available, or I ask the deputy mayor or members of this council to be there for various presentations.
Your worship, I'm gonna let this one go in a minute. I've said enough, but your support is one thing, doesn't mean anything if your picture isn't in the paper with those folks raising the flag. That piece of canvas flopping over the main street in a 40-mile-an-hour wind isn't much of a symbol, and you don't see the volunteer group standing underneath it with the mayor getting their picture for the front page.
No.
So you can talk all day, I'm opposed to this based on that grounds, and you know why. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. All right, I will look to Council for direction. Councilor Dutch.
Move that council approve policy number 110-02, flags and banners.
Seconder, Councilor Monroe. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed?
Would you record that, please, Rudy?
Certainly can, Council.
So moved.
Moving on to 8.4, I see there's nothing under the Chief Financial Officer, we've covered that already. All good. 8.5,
Your worship, point of order, does the request for a recorded vote have to occur before the vote?
I'll look to the city clerk.
The request does, but we have in the past already.
Okay, just to be fair.
Yeah. Moving to 8.5.1, the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 8.5.1.
Sorry, city manager, I have to back up on this one, I got ahead of myself. I got apologies. 8.3.2, back to the city clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The matter before us is the request of council review an order issued to section 503 of the charter, and that the recommendation after council has had time to deliberate would be to confirm, vary, or cancel the order pursuant to section 503 of the Westminster Charter. There was an order issued on July 9th, 2018. Administration issued an order pursuant to section 503 of the Westminster Charter. Pursuant to section 506 of the Charter, any person who receives an order under 503 has the opportunity to request the council review the order, and after such review, the council confirm, vary, or cancel the order. In this case, the order directs that the amount owing on an account is due is to be paid, and that the city be allowed to inspect the meter and properly connect the meter so it be read. The request from the opponent is that the council review the attached order and that he does not want electrical interference ways or holes drilled in the private property. The process surrounding this, and council is aware of it, is once council has received the information, they're satisfied that they've received the information in public, then they would, at either a regular in-camera or a prior in-camera, discuss the items and then come out and either confirm, vary, or cancel the order. Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, city clerk. So the information has been provided as to regarding the item under section 503 and the response from the individual. I guess adjournment would be the proper term to in-camera for legal opinion.
We can just, when we move to the camera, we can just move them out of it.
Okay. That's agreeable to council.
Does our verdict have to be in public or?
We would come out, we deal with it after, we come out of camera, after we've had a legal opinion at that time.
Right, but then I'm just saying the media, when will the media or anyone else, how will we notify?
It will come out in the next meeting.
So just a quick question though, for the dishonest, so that my understanding is that in changing the meters, that there are no holes drilled whatsoever.
There is, I believe, and I stand to be corrected, a small hole that has to be put through to get the wiring from the inside of the house to your wall, from the box on the outside of the transmitter.
If you don't have it, or some of them have it already, I don't know.
I can't speak to what the situation is in this home. Normally, there is already wire through the wall for the touchdown.
That's something we could have our operations team provide information and get that, well, immediately so I can talk to.
Yeah, because
director or the manager.
Your worship, when they installed mine, they said there's a wire that already goes in, and just need to make sure it's hooked up, because there's already a meter, there's a connection to the meter flow or whatever on the inside of them. So I'm confused by the holes drilled in my private property, because this seems to be irrelevant.
I think for the most part, that's how it functions,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure what the particulars.
Councilor Buckingham.
And within the new system, my little piece got a little bigger on the outside of the house, so different holes. So technically, yes, they go to the holes in my house, technically.
Councilor
It sounds like it doesn't want electrical interference as well, so the holes are only one item there.
Yeah, I just
Waves.
All right, so
Yeah.
set that aside to the AGAM then, from this point on. All right, now, city manager, my apologies, back to 8.5.1.
Thank you, Your Worship. To discuss 8.5.1 Alberta Health Membership, we'll ask Captain from Economic Development to present.
Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today I would like to request a decision for the Alberta Hub membership. It was presented May 22nd and June 18th. Information on the Alberta Hub and the membership, as well as the financial implications that would go with it. Right now we're looking at a prorated membership, so about $4,200 for this year plus travel expenses. My recommendation would be that council approves the 2018 membership for Alberta.
Questions or comments from council? I believe there was some money set aside in the budget from the information you provided that was not allocated to the Yellowhead Highway Association by this council, so that would, in essence, be able to be used towards covering the hub's membership for this year.
For this year, yes.
Councillor?
Just one question I had. In always trying to look and see where the best bang for our buck is, more or less. The remaining $1,000 to be covered through the Economic Development Membership account. How much of an account do we have for that?
I can't remember the dollar figure right now, but we did allocate dollars for the Saskatchewan Economic Development Alliance, the Alberta Economic Development and Canadian Economic Development. The Alberta Economic Development membership is mine personally, and it did not come out of the budget for this year. So there is a little bit of funds there. I believe it's 3,500. Yeah, 3,500.
So grabbing the remaining $1,000 to be covered through the Economic Development Membership account doesn't put that account over or in jeopardy of missing out on something else we should possibly consider.
Not for this year.
Councillor Thorson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this one I think is a great idea in terms of good value for dollar for what we could potentially get out of it. I know the mayor and I took some economic development training before SUMA in February, and there's a lot of benefits to joining one of the regional economic development hubs. There's kind of economies of scale that you get when you put a bunch of groups together, not to mention if something happens in Vermilion or Kidscotty or somewhere else around here where there's some investment happening, the benefits are still flowing to Lloydminster from an economic development perspective. So I think, looking at this from a regional perspective and joining this group is going to have, a lot of potential significant benefits to us. Not to mention some of the lobbying that I know they do that actually kind of benefit us locally. One of the training days some of the other councillors went to was talking about the Highway 36 corridor, which, the Highway 36 corridor is kind of like in our backyard type of thing of how it benefits us, whereas when we were looking at Highway 16 overall, well, there's a lot of ground you could cover as to whether or not that had any benefit for Lloydminster specifically. So I think it's a great proposal and a good group, and I think that it'll be all the more benefit to the city of Lloyd if we join this and spend the very little money in the grand scheme of things on joining this group.
Any other comments?
Your Worship, I guess when we were in Calgary, I think one other comment from the minister was, so how do we get access to some of these business endeavors that other communities are? And the answer was pretty simple. You're on Hub, aren't you? Or aren't you on the list? And we weren't. And so I think, you know what, if you're not at the party, you're not privileged to any possibilities that can occur. I think this opens the door to those possibilities that we weren't privy to in the past. So support.
I think our uniqueness as that bi-provincial city that we talk about on a regular basis challenges us. We have the hub on the Alberta side, and certainly the Saskatchewan Economic Development Developers Association group on the west, or pardon me, to the east. And I think that it's something that we'll be discussing more at budget time for both parties, because if we're going to have our flag stuck on both sides, which we do need to make our presence felt. And I think the hub is the beginning of this relationship. We went through some changes through economic development since this council was elected, and I think this is a good step going in that direction, helping build the relationship with our neighboring communities in the area. And I think the hub helps bring that together, because it does cover a large area. And I think we've all had a piece of some economic development in our term, and we're going to get more of it because it's critical. We know that's the founding basis of our communities. So certainly I think it's going in the right direction. Any other comments? I'll look to council for direction. Council Buckingham.
Council approved the 2018 membership to the Alberta Hub.
Seconder, Council Diachuk. Any further questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Captain. Moving to City Manager to 8.5.2.
Thank you, Worship. To discuss 8.5.2 tobacco reduction grant allocation, so I'll ask Patrick to come forward from SSS.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon, Patrick.
Today I'm here to request a decision on allocations for the Lloydminster Tobacco Reduction Grant in the amounts of $9,000 for the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy Sign-Up Change, $6,450 for Lloydminster Sexual Assault and Information Centers Behind the Smoke, and $11,000 for Lloydminster Rural Home Society Love and Allowance. The amounts listed there add up to a total sum of $26,450, which is the total amount that has been collected for this year under the Business License Bylaw 16/2016 for use in the Lloydminster Tobacco Reduction Grant.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's worth noting that if you look at the summary of the applications page that's up there, you'll see that not one of the groups that is being funded in this received full funding. So one of the questions that was asked within the group was, will these programs be able to proceed if they ask for this much funding, but were not given their full amounts? And there's a lot of time spent on making sure that was the case, because the committee didn't want to have good money after that. And so, use the interval home, for instance, had a $22,000 request of $26,000 worth of funds. So it was, look at this, see what we can do with it, and make the best decision possible. And the committee spent a lot of time making sure that was going to be the case. So don't be fooled by saying that, they only got half the money. What are they going to do with the program? Those programs will be able to go forward. I think that's fair for the discussion that we had that night.
Yes, Councillor Buckingham, you're correct in that there's a lot of thought going towards the allocation funds. In fact, for the tobacco reduction grant, we did do a preliminary call out to those agencies, the three that are receiving funding here, to confirm that with the amounts that they were allocated, would those projects be able to go forward.
Thanks, Richard. The question around the signs is going to change, and I'm just sort of wondering what the signs are, and will they be compliant with what I guess we have as expectations for signs within the parks from the city standpoint?
Thank you, Councillor. My understanding is the proposal that was put forward by the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy is that they would partner with the City of Lloydminster, and so that signage that would be going up in any of our parks or facilities would be compliant with what the City of Lloydminster expectations and standards are. There have been I'm privy to the conversations, but I believe they have been conversations between our communications department and the drug strategy in preparing for the application.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll look for direction from council on 8.5.2. Councilor Buckingham.
The council approved the following recommended grant allocations for the 2018 Lloydminster Tobacco Reduction Grant. The Lloydminster and Area Drug Strategy is sign up change for $9,000. The Lloydminster Sexual Assault Information Center behind the smoke lighting and coping skills $6,450. And the Lloydminster Interval Home Society 11 by 11s for $11,000.
Second. Councilor. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councilor Baker.
Just a question, the mayor. Interval Home, how do they present their, program?
Thank you, Councillor. The Interval Home Society proposal outlines that they are going to develop a campaign that targets individuals struggling with poverty and marginalized, and they want to utilize the populations that they work closely with through the Lloydminster Community Youth Center, as that's part of their operation, as well as their clients that are integral in the development.
Through the youth center. That's good enough. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Any further questions? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Patrick, I believe you're up again one more time. Don't go too far. Through the city manager to Patrick for 8.5.3.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm here again to request a decision on grant allocation funding for the Family and Community Support Services Special Project Grant. These are funds that were set aside as part of the initial 2018 funding allocations. $26,000 was requested and approved by council for special projects to occur later in the year. We have put out a call for applications, and the FCSS Advisory Committee has met and reviewed those grant applications and made the following recommendations. That the Lloydminster Interval Home Society receive $11,100 for Leading Change Lloydminster. Lloydminster Catholic School Division received $5,000 for the Boys to Men Conference and Mentorship. The Sexual Assault Information Center received $3,000 for Compassion and Connection Series. The Lloydminster Early Years Coalition received $2,400 for Discover the Family Side of Lloydminster campaign. Catholic Social Services received $1,500 for Taste of Cultures International Cuisine. And Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy Simple Connection Stronger Kids received $3,000. I do want to take a moment to thank the FCSS Advisory Committee for their time spent reviewing these applications, and they gathered together to provide the recommendations to us.
Thank you, Patrick. Questions or comments? Councilor Baker.
Yeah, the advisory committee, they do a wonderful job, and I know that Patrick, you lead them in doing a lot of research on all of those requests. So I'm very happy with if they figure that these are the folks that deserve it, then so be it.
I want to steal Councilor Buckingham's thunder, but the same comment applies to the previous discussion Council had about requests and actual funding. In each case, I don't think anyone got their requested funding. There was allowance to try and spread that money across as great a number as possible. I appreciate the committee doing that and working with the groups that have applied, and I hope the groups again have indicated they'll be able to make a program work with the resources they've been given, as they all do on a regular basis. Many nonprofit organizations in this city work very hard at stretching those dollars to the maximum limit. We appreciate that. Any other comments? Not seeing any, I'll look to Council. Councilor Buckingham.
The council approved the 2018 FCSS Special Project Grant allocation of $26,000 as presented, and the council authorized the FCSS Advisory Committee to reallocate any unused or returned grant funds. The Lloydminster Interval Home Society, Leading Change Lloydminster, $11,100. Lloydminster Catholic School Division 89, Boys to Men Conference and Mentorship for $5,000. Compassion and Connection Series for $3,000. The Leominster Early Years Coalition discovered the family side of Leominster Storyteller video for $2,400. Catholic Social Services Taste the Cultures International Facility for $1,500. And Leominster Area Drug Strategy Simple Connection Strong Case for $3,000.
Second. Councilor Torres. Any other questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks very much, Patrick. To the city manager for 8.5.4.
Thank you, Your Worship, to present the 2018 Traffic Signal Project Tender Award. I'll call Stan, Executive Manager, Community.
Thank you, Jim. Before you got the 2018 Traffic Signal Project Tender Award, and administration is looking for council to approve the award of the 2018 Traffic Signal Project to Epcor Technologies Incorporated of Edmonton for $442,427.46, excluding GST, and that mayor and city clerk are authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. In addition to that, council approved contingency allowance up to 10% or $44,242.74 to be funded through the approved capital budget. The 2018 signal project was tendered previously. The program is upgrading existing traffic signal hardware in accordance with the 2014 traffic signal assessment, installation of new signal poles and removal of meridian poles at 44th Street and 62 Avenue, and construction of new traffic signals at 25th Street and 59th Avenue. The 2018 TSP request for tender document was issued on June 12, 2018 through the bids and tenders website. On June 27th at 4 p.m., the tender period closed and 4 contractors had submitted bids. Of the bids that were submitted, Epcor Technology Incorporated provided the lowest bid of $442,427.40 plus GST. There's a list of the other contractors that provided bids. Want to draw your attention to the budget implications or the budget discussion. Through the 2018 capital budget process, administration had estimated $1,150,000 for the 2 traffic signal installations that were required. This leaves significant budget available for council to look at a few options which are provided in the report. To summarize, we can either award the project as is, funded through the approval of capital. We could approve the project as is. In addition, council instruct administration to pursue installation of signals at another intersection to be completed in this construction season. Or the third option, that council approve this project as well as allocation of excess funds to reserve fund to fund a future installation in 2019. So I'll pass it back to you, Your Worship, if you have any questions. Actually, sorry, I want to add one other note. This is tied to some work we're doing at the intersection of 44th Street. There is proposed turning lane installation being considered at that location, and there is some work to be done with the current landowner as part of that process. And I've just confirmed with Terry that this project has no bearing on any of that portion of work. These traffic signals will be installed in currently owned road right away.
Councilor Buckingham.
I realize the question might bring a laugh or two. Is there a certain part of our area that we could do another project at that's desperately needed? And I know there is. I just wondered in the priority list what that is. If we were to go down that road, it says go to another project. Where would that project be?
We do have other locations. Before I provide you an answer, I want to make sure we've done our due diligence to ensure that the priorities are in line, that the traffic counts continue to warrant those. I don't want to specify a specific location without having some consultation There are definitely other intersections that require or are very close to requiring traffic signal on a warranted perspective, and we would look at which one makes the most sense and apply to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because everybody asks, what do you do about this intersection? What do you do about that intersection? And just to let people know there is a prioritized list of, with some research behind it that will warrant where this would go and should we go that direction, doing one more project this year.
Councilor Baker, and come around.
Thank you, Richard. I might have missed something. In the report, do we have to do any realignment at 59th and 25th?
There currently are no traffic signals in that intersection, so that would be a completely new installation of signal lights.
Right, you were talking about.
I don't believe there's any expansion of the road or turn lanes, but I'd ask Terry Burton, Director of Engineering, to provide any comments if he has.
I can maybe answer your question, Councilor Baker. We did discuss a traffic circle
Yeah,
in
yes.
due time. And I think this is the solution that's being proposed by engineering. Correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, today, that will carry us for, I'll let Terry tell us how long he estimates before the traffic volumes will dictate that traffic circle.
Yeah, thank you.
As much as I don't like traffic circles, these lights, if you put them in now, do they have to be moved when you build a traffic circle, or what do you have to do? Like, how many years out are we talking, or?
I think Terry's the person that will answer that.
Very good question, Councillor. The future direction or future plans that we have for 59th Avenue and 25th Street there, of course, is the roundabout. That's currently on the table. This installation of traffic signals will give us about 10 more years before we have to actually do anything. So this is an interim process. When it comes to actually installing the roundabout, those traffic signals or poles and equipment and everything else, we'll have to utilize another intersection at some point in time because we will need it for the roundabout itself.
Excuse me. Well, just further to that, over the time, we've talked about that one piece that's not 4-lane yet, east of that intersection.
Yes.
Okay, is that 10 years away too?
Yes, that'll be part of the whole process of upgrading College Drive, yes. The roundabout and 4 lanes.
That's the one that I hear most about. How come you go down a single lane there and everything else is 4-lane from Highway 17 all the way to the north end of the city? You know, that one little block or 2 blocks in there? I don't know what the right thing is. I'll have to leave it to you folks, but I'm just saying, that's what I've been asked about many times. Why don't you guys finish widening that so it's 4-lane right around the city? Just a question. That's why I'm asking.
Good question, Councillor. I ask myself that one every so often when I drive by. Councillor, okay, Councillor Monroe, and then back Councillor.
Mine was just, I recalled that those lights could be reutilized after.
Yes.
You answered everything.
Councillor Corson.
Thanks, Jerry. We appreciate that.
Thank you. I was just curious on this, on the proposed budget that we, or the proposed fees that we have for this right now. That is for what was otherwise budgeted just for that portion at 1.1 million?
Yes, yes.
Have prices changed significantly from one year to the next?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's cool. I just, it sounds crazy, and I'll say the same thing. And I'm not accusing anyone when I say this, but it's always a concern of mine. I just don't want to find out later that someone was sandbagging their budget, you know. I need this much, so it gives you extra to work with, because it's a big concern of mine. And not necessarily for this government, but when you look at any budget ever, is somebody sandbagging? My job is normally to find out. It's good to hear the prices are coming down, because that means we can do more, or we can do something different, or whatever the case is. That's awesome. My only other comment was, are all the goods from each of the providers the same goods? Like, we gave them a specification that it had to be a, you know, whatever brand XYZ 320, or are they different? And I only say that because we see a lot of different things in terms of what gets presented to us in our agenda report. I can understand why you would only put price if it was the same quantity and goods being put out there, but then are we also doing an analysis of whether or not it's you know, the best fit in terms of product, useful life, all those other things that you would otherwise be scoring that would give a total score. And these guys may have not been, let's say, the highest score in terms of all those other things, but did end up being lowest price. I'm just curious on that.
Okay, good questions there, Councillor. I'll deal with the first one on price, the whole price of the contract side of things. And I think it was 2 years ago, we did the traffic signals at 25th Street and 53rd Avenue. And that was right around the 300 plus mark to put those lights in at the time. So based on that, and Highway 16 being a lot bigger pole, we anticipated the cost to be a lot higher. Frankly, quite shocked with the pricing that we got. Great for us as a municipality by all means. As for the equipment side of things, our whole city definitely has specific controllers from a certain manufacturer. That's definitely in the contract or in the tenders as well. But there is some pieces where we left it up to the vendors or the contractors to provide suggestions. We'll always include a base model, but they always can provide an option. But most of the stuff is pretty much spec'd out.
Okay, so then it does make sense to only provide in that scenario just price. But that's what I need to hear. Thank you.
Councilor Baker.
Your worship, there's a trend here when you follow the bidding. I think, and I don't have all the reports, but Can Traffic, for example, for years has done a lot of work in Woodminster, if I remember correctly. They're high bidder. There's people like Epcor Technologies and Highline's been around for a long time. I don't know about TV Traffic, but they're all lower than the traditional Can Traffic, and they're probably scratching their head saying, what happened this time? That's going on all over the place, I've been told. I'm not in touch with the market anymore, but I've been told that there's a lot of players. For example, when the Anthony Henry got finished, all of a sudden there was a lot of people available to do a lot of work that haven't been available for the last X number of years because they've been working on the, whatever they do on that Anthony Henry. So I'm really excited when I see some other guys bidding. I didn't realize it was, I missed something there, Councillor Jonathan, about the $1 million. What did I miss? The budget was $1 million, and the same work, did you ask for, is 507?
All in will be 521.
Yep.
You just paid for the lights at your water treatment plant.
We still got to keep in mind that there's some costs for our consultants to do the design and a little bit of construction management on top of this, but nowhere near $500,000 for that work.
Absolutely. Councilor
Your Worship, it's great news to see the economy benefiting us in this way. I guess the other thing I'm thinking about in light of the fact that we're looking at more than $40 million, I would really want us to consider putting this under reserve. I know there's always going to be a project, there's always going to be a list of another need, but we won't have this kind of savings on any other projects, I would think.
Point well taken, Councilor. I think that when there's money being spent, there's always improvements, but it's certainly, we've got some big ticket items on the agenda that makes this look like chicken feed. So.
Well, I think the paper was what, 1.25 million a year on the loan? Something like that, John, do you remember that? Yeah. So there's about two-thirds of the payment.
Yeah, two-thirds of the payment, so. All right. Councillor Buckingham.
Process question. It says to put that into reserve funds for a future installation in 2019. Can we amend that? You know, to your point, right? It specifically said that in here, so I just wanted to ask the question, if you're saying we should just put this away for this, can we move it?
Your Worship, I guess I'm just saying consideration should be given to it. I don't know how high the needs are relative to the other projects. And I think we've had a couple of projects where we come under a little bit, and that's good news. That's good for us. But I think the other part of it, we haven't come in and found money like this that is this amount. And I guess I'm just saying the consideration should be given the opportunity to see this.
Absolutely. The council's up to making the motion, so I think that we have the latitude to make that motion accordingly. Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, I think when you look at some of the stuff we've seen over the last even few months, we've had some projects that are going to cost significantly more. So, you know, I'd rather not tie our hands too much in the current year and just kind of let it flow a little bit and let them figure it out, because we've seen some where, oh, this is going to happen right now, a baffle curtain, let's say. where it kind of came out of, we'll say nowhere. We knew it had to be replaced eventually, but either way, there was a lot of money we had to spend in the last few meetings, so anyway, thank you.
Your worship of May, we just spotted, 300 meters of stormwater line this weekend. A note came out that wasn't included, that you run into problems with. I don't know what that'll cost, but, there's an example.
I think the capital budget is constantly being tugged at, so I think that having the ability to sit down with administration and come forward with recommendations, knowing where council feels about some things, I think that can be put into reserve and looked at.
Or enter that to accommodate for cost overruns and projects that are either unforeseen or coming over budget.
Absolutely.
So I was going to suggest that at the end of this, that it goes to cover exactly what Councilor Diachuk said, the things that have gone into this budget year over budget. Spread that out and try and offset some of those costs.
I think as well, it's an easy pitfall to get into if you just say, oh, we saved $1 bazillion here so we can spend it elsewhere. The reality is you're spending a little extra on many other projects as well. And I think it'd be nice for us to be really cautious about that for 1 year so we just get a sense of where we're at and not try to overspend, if you like, and try to overdo. And I know there's a lot of stuff to do and we have, I don't know how many hundreds of millions our capital budget is, but I guess I just want to be going slow.
So I guess the question is, will motion 1 cover off what you're hearing in discussion from council, and it simply allude to the amount of money being spent, and that's the end of it?
Yeah, I'd love to our chief financial officer to provide a recommendation on how that would be worded.
Chief financial officer.
Thank you. My feeling would be to wait till the end of the year and then council look at all the unallocated capital and decide what you want to put it, whether you want to put it forward into 19 or whether you want to put it into a reserve. Also, council had given direction that you wanted to review all reserves, and so maybe that's part of that discussion.
So look, the city clerk motion.
And I guess the other part of it is, could we do it at the end of the third quarter as well?
Certainly.
Okay, because I think if we want to look at it, if it is substantive and there's opportunity, we want to do it within that final quarter, if it's possible to do it within that quarter, I guess, if they're projects. But because then if you're waiting to the end of the year, it's too late, you're into the 2019, I guess it can carry forward. But if the economy is right and we're hearing projects are coming in under projected costs, I mean, there's the benefit of savings doing it ASAP. So maybe at the end of the third quarter review.
Question for the city clerk then, just so if we pass motion number 1, that's where it would just sit as surplus. You understand it?
That's correct. The current recommendation doesn't deal with any of the excess funds.
Any other questions from council? If not, I'll look for direction. Councilor Diachuk.
Move that council approve the award of the 2018 traffic signal project at Core Technologies Inc. of Edmonton, Alberta for $442,427.40, excluding GST, and the mayor and city clerk are authorized to sign and seal all the necessary documents. In addition, council approve a contingency allowance of 10% of $44,242.74 to be funded through the approved capital budget.
Seconder, Councilor Thorson. Any further questions, comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks very much, Terry, for that. Moving on to agenda item number 8.55, the city manager.
To present 8.55, the Westminster Golf Recruitment Center capital compressor replacement. I'll ask Joel Turcotte to present.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joel.
I'm here today to talk to you about the Westminster Golf Recruitment Center capital compressor replacement. A recommendation that council approved the reallocation of $17,394 using funds from the capital allocation reserve to cover the expenses for the replacement project of the LGCC compressor. During the budget process, council approved capital funding in the amount of $13,000 for Service Sports Center compressor rebuild and $25,000 for the LGC compressor replacement. Since that budget, the The scope of work changed to the LGCC compressor replacement. Administration was made aware from the Technical Safety Authority of Saskatchewan, known as TSAS, that additional and extensive work is needed to be done prior to starting the plant again. Additional upgrades include adding additional relief valves into the oil separators and changing piping to allow the venting of the ammonia relief valves to the outdoors. Without this additional work, TSAS will not approve our use of that plant. Administration recently tendered, and we tendered this for the first time that I know of, maintenance services and 2 capital projects related to the arena plants in one request proposal. The benefit of tendering both the service and the capital upgrades in one tender allows for a single contractor to deal with the arena plants. I'm sure this all can appreciate these plants are extremely dangerous and extremely expensive, so it's really important that when we have a contractor working on these plants that they know everything that is going on to keep the facility and staff safe. The tender was posted on June 5th, 2018 and closed June 25th, 2018 and was advertised by the purchasing policy. Administration received 2 bids and we reviewed both bids. You can see our weighting scale there. J&J Air Conditioning Refrigerations score was higher with the lowest price. Stantec Service was higher. Service contract includes the plant startups of Archie Miller Arena, Russ Robson Arena, and LGCC, as well as 1 mid-season check of all plants. The agreement includes checking the control settings, condensed fans, motors, refrigerant levels, checks, nozzles checks, and oil changes. Anything outside of the agreement would be charged at $85 an hour per person and $330 per trip. The service contract is valued at $11,028. Capital project tendered in that same RFP, service ports and compressor rebuild valued at $8,374. So I do want to note that this is below the budgeted account, but until you get into these rebuilds, these compressor rebuilds, you don't really know the full damage. So that cost could increase depending on what it looks like inside. And we also, LGC compressor replacement valued at $42,000, so that was higher than expected. The difference between the budget capital amount and the change of scope is $17,394, and this could be funded by using unallocated capital funds. Option, the council approved the reallocation of the $17,394 using funds for capital allocation reserve to cover the expenses for the replacement project of the LGC compressor. Option number 2, the council does not approve the reallocation of $17,394 to cover for the replacement project. This would defer the project until 2019, and we, of course, would not be able to start up that plan for the drilling season.
Thank you, Joel, for being so straightforward and bringing it to the table. Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. So, the Civic Center is not listed on here at all, as far as plant startups and so on and so forth. Who currently takes care of that? It's one of the only plants that's not listed on this RFP.
Yeah, so this contract will not start till, I believe, in July. So the Civic Center, or sorry, at the, that arena starts up prior to this contract. Now we currently do use J&J Refrigeration, so it's the same group that won the bid, but it's not included in the contract because, like I said, this was the first time where we have actually tendered out the service, and the Civic Center just had to start before the contract started.
And this one?
So typically, and how we'll do it in the future is this contract will actually expire in February once it's signed, and then that will give us the notion of what needs to be done in the whole year, including the capital that needs to be done in those plants. And so the same contractor per contract when we sign that new one will be doing all the shutdowns and all the startups. But because this contract servicing has never been tendered out prior to now, we just need to start the Civic Center first.
And the rebuild of the service support center that's included in this, correct?
That's right, so you can rebuild the plant, because the service support center has 3 compressors, so they'll just use the 2 that don't need to be rebuild that third one as the plant's still going.
Right, so they're going to service the other ones there too?
Yeah.
At the same time?
Yeah, and they'll service the Civic Center once the agreement is in place. Just they won't, the startup of the Civic Center isn't included in the contract, so it'll already started up.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilor Baker.
Your Worship, Nordic Mechanical has been around here for a number of years. Their vans usually park out front here. Do they not do refrigeration?
I'm actually unsure what Nordic does. I know they do not.
We bring them from Edmonton on a regular basis. And, yeah. And I think they have someone that lives here. They may have a permanent employee living here, I don't know that. But we pay $330 a trip every time somebody comes here from somewhere. And if you have an in-house or in-city, let's put it that way. And is there no mechanics that will bid on this work or has a qualification?
My understanding is there is no one who will work with ammonia within the city. Now, I'm not exactly sure about Nordic, I can tell you that. I do know we publicly released this, and the two that bid, one was from Balfour, which is J&J Refrigeration. Stantec is from Edmonton.
This mileage all adds up when you run that. Good point with ammonia, and it's even getting worse. And JNR has been doing this a long time, I know this.
Yeah, I think J&J helps deliver the Pinties to make sure that plant made it through at the Civic Center. And we're here quite a bit of that time from that perspective. Certainly the ammonia issue was raised a year ago across this country with the actions in BC or the loss of municipal employees. And I think that TSASC is based, that he said you're doing it this way or else we're not going to be operational. So we are now being mandated by the regulatory agency, not necessarily the government, but it's an appointed regulatory agency known as TSASC. It doesn't leave us many options, but I think safety, as this council, again, is paramount, that every employee goes home at the end of every day. And whatever it takes to ensure that that's the case, I think that makes it pretty easy in my decision.
Their insurance premiums are probably fairly high too.
Well, they likely will go up, that's for sure, but at the end of the day, we want to ensure that safety is...
Thank you, that answers my question.
Yeah, and just to know that this was publicly...
I just wondered why they were bidding, but you answered that quite well.
Any other questions or comments? That's why there's been concert.
Thank you. There it is. Perfect. Thank you, Your Worship. My only issue, I just find that this AR report, for whatever reason, and I probably could have sent something out on Friday when I saw it, I think struggled to say, okay, budget for this item, this is who we're tendering to. I just found it confusing at the overall start to finish up. Maybe it's just me, and it's just a general comment. I think the way we saw the last one is kind of a little more the flavor of what I'd like to see anyway, but mild criticism. But otherwise, thank you for the great work and everything, and great that we've got this on the table. We can deal with it before it's too late for these startups, and we can get it done on time. But I just found it a little difficult to read this one. But thank you.
So, Your Worship, I guess maybe a question for Lee. So this 17,000 will come out of that pot where that saving just went into.
My understanding is not all the capital was allocated yet, and so this would be part of it. And my idea would be that any cost savings on any capital budget would then be back in.
Any other questions or comments? About the council for direction on 8.5.5. Councilor Buckingham.
The council approved the reallocation of $17,394 using funds from the capital allocation reserve to cover the expenses for the replacement project of the LGCC compressor.
Second, Councilor Baker. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I believe you're back up again, Joel. To say 8.5.6, City Manager, through Joel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm today to talk to you about the lift and automatic door project at the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center. Administration has found a grant, the Enabling Accessibility Fund grant. It's a federal grant that administration would like to put an application in for a lift system and automatic doors at the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center. This would be a 2019 project, but the grant, which is due July 26, needs at least 35% funded through the city. So And based on recent quotes, administration anticipates the total cost of the proposed project to be approximately $51,229. Administration will be requesting funding from the Enabling Accessibility Fund programs costs to cover 65% of total eligible expenditures, which would be $33,299. And 35%, $17,930 of the funding must come from a source outside of the Enabling Fund program funding. Administration will include the lift automatic doors project as a proposed project for the 2019 capital budget. As part of the funding program requirements, applicants are required to provide written confirmation that they will fund 35% of the total project cost at the time of application submission, once again due July 26. Administration will know if the grant application was successful in January of 2019. Option that council commit $17,930 to the lift and automatic doors project at the Woodminster Golf and Curling Center to the 2019 capital budget. In addition, council instructs administration to apply for the remaining funds for the lift and automatic doors project through the Enabling Accessibility Fund grant. 2, that council requests additional information to be brought back to a later council meeting regarding the lift and automatic door project at LGCC. This would prevent the city submitting the project to the Enabling Accessibility Fund 2018 intake and delay the application until the 2019 intake. And 3, the council will not approve the lift and automatic door project at LGCC and 35% of the funding. This would prevent the city from submitting the Enabling Accessibility Fund application. So there's a picture of what those lifts typically work like. This lift would be located where you go into the restaurant area of LGCC, so to just provide more accessibility to that area.
That would be on the very east side of the...
That is on the north side.
North side, okay. Councilor Torsten,
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's a great idea, especially with some of the barrier-free type policies we've been talking about. This is really practicing what we preach, as well as if you're going to spend money, it's always best to spend money where you're spending 35-cent dollars. So if we can get the funding, that would be fantastic. My only big question is, does this affect construction or design for what's going to be going on in the fall here for the changing of the exterior of the building?
It should not be an issue. I'll double check that, but my understanding is that the lifts are on the stairs, and it should be able to apply no matter what. By the time, this would be a 2019 project, so that exterior project that you're talking about should be done this year.
Okay.
So, Councilor Baker.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. The improvements to the entrance to the north side of the, what do we call it, the Communiplex, what do we call it now? Golf and Country Club, excuse me. They've been outdated since they were built, in my opinion. I don't think the rise and the run is worth the darn on those stairs. They're icy most of the time in the wintertime. When you hit the bottom landing, it's a slope out to the north. I think they're a hazard in themselves. So I don't know about the stairs, if you've ever looked at them. But I might suggest that you look at that stairway that we use every day to get into that building, separate from this access. I just bring it up because when I read this, it reminded me of how many times I believe we should have, or should be, looking at somehow upgrading that stair and also having a middle handrail in it, because it's wide and people come up there 5 deep. I've seen it happen, and you don't have to be 90 to slip. And those stairs are somewhat undesirable in my opinion. The only question I had on the work itself was, we commit to 35%, are we going to go ahead whether we get the grant or not, or is that the idea? Or are we going ahead once we get the grant?
We wouldn't go ahead until we get the grant.
Okay.
So this is a 2019 project, so we would still include this within our 2019 capital project budget grant, but we need approved funding for at least 35%.
And a time when things are a little tough, we're doing assessments down and things like that, we've got to kind of watch what I mean, they're all important things, don't misunderstand me, but we gotta find some balance here. We're spending every day because we still gotta spend it. So, yeah. So if you're gonna wait till you get the grant approved, that's great too.
Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, I was just trying to visualize whether it's going along the ramp or around the stairs, because those stairs are, and I get it, things I'm looking at this project here, it's a lot bigger obviously than so I'm not sure we come up with the magic number of 50,000 or whatever it is, but I imagine there are other projects that have the same kind of length and whatever, so we have some idea on that, Mr. Because I mean, we have that ramp going out to the left to the east, right, and it doubles back again. So, but this model here goes right alongside the stairs, is what you're saying.
That's correct, yeah, that ramp, the rise is pretty steep, and so that helps fix that. The ramp would still be there, we'd probably use it for hauling beverages and that kind of thing up, but it does prevent some access to the building as that.
I agree with Councilor Torres, and anytime we can get a 35-cent dollar stretch, it certainly gets my support. I wish we could do that at the wastewater treatment plant. I can get moving on, but we're working in progress. But I think that certainly making it more accessible as a public building to the community as a whole is a real benefit. And I appreciate what you said, Councilor Baker. We do need to be mindful of the 2019 budget because that will need to be looked at. But it's the government's putting out the cheese, I guess, and half the most trap, and we've got to play in the trap. So we'll commit if that's what council wishes, and at least wait and see if they match us with their 65%. Any other comments? Look to council for direction. Councilor Baker.
The council commits $17,930 for the lift in the automatic doors project at the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center in the 2019 capital budget. In addition, council instructs administration to apply for the remaining funds for the lift and automatic door project through the Enabling Accessibility Fund grants.
Seconder. Councilor Monroe. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks very much, Cheryl. Moving on to the agenda of 8.6, operations, and 8.61, let's do the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present 8.6.1, joint growth study, I'll ask Sam from Long Range Planning to come forward.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Council.
Good afternoon, Sam.
I'm here this afternoon to present administration recommendation regarding that's the restarting of the joint growth studies process with the County of Vermilion River, and the recommendation is that Council authorize the City of Lloydminster to proceed with the completion of the joint growth studies with the County of Vermilion River. And now the context to this, though, is that in 2015, the city and the county engaged, started the annexation negotiation process, and out of that process grew the need to have a joint growth studies process. But sometime during the process, in 2016, there was a little bit of a disagreement with regards to some of the way some of the components of that study was being addressed, and then the city had to pull out of that of the joint growth studies. That was in November of 2017. Now, on June 25, 2018, the Intermunicipal Annexation Committee, that's INAC, met to discuss the possibility of restarting the process. The meeting gave the city and the county the opportunity to discuss some go-forward strategies. The two collaboratively agreed that they shared common interests and goals. So, and this was presented to the GPC on July 9th. So at the July 9th GPC meeting, it was recommended that administration bring this one forward to council for decision. Now, in making a recommendation, there are some areas that administration identified that the city needs to be mindful of, and we need to seek some clarity. One of them is better clarity with regards to the definitions that are being used for the study's short, medium, and long-term growth projections. This was one of the areas of contention. The other one is to engage a consultant to peer review that's the population projection. If anything is going to go wrong in road studies, is the population that's used, and sometimes the city can get shortchanged through that. Then the third is to provide a better understanding of the assumptions used to determine the land requirements that's by the consultant. These can be done as we proceed with the joint road studies process. So then one other quick thing before I open this one up for question is that the financial implication of this, when this was presented to the GPC, we had said, well, we don't have any budget. Actually, we have a budget for a revision or an update of our 2013 road studies, which is $100,000. So that's still available and that can be used. And since this is a 50-50 share between us and the county, our portion will go 50% of the cost. So I still believe that where we are right now, which is almost 92% finished, what we have in the budget should be able to complete it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Questions or comments? Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'll definitely speak in favor of moving forward with this joint growth study. I think if you look at it, even if we take a few steps back and make sure we're in the right point as far as our initial assumptions are, and have them reviewed by a peer review to make sure that we're at the right point as far as growth estimates and things like that. I still believe that we're a lot closer to the finish line if we go and do the joint growth study rather than starting the process over and doing our own 50-year growth study or whatever was potentially on the table before. I think we're communicating really well with our partners to the west, and I think that there's an appetite for both sides to get something figured out, to get the joint growth study complete, to get plans made so that they can continue on with doing business and we can continue on with doing business. I just think that it's mutually beneficial for both groups to move forward on this, and hopefully their council sees it the same way as we do, or as I do.
Yes, I would agree. I think we still have an agreement in place with the county relative to process, even if this doesn't go where we want it to. So legally, I think we're still on the ground relative to some of the pieces that need to be there. But I think there's also a sense of time as being a critical element for our neighbors on both sides. And I think there's a sense that being responsible to both sides in terms of moving forward this seems like the best strategy to take. And I think as Councilor Torson has said, is that there's a lot of signals that we're getting that we're in a different place than where we were before. And I think this is the right way to go.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Richard. Under the report, under governance implications, the joint growth study process will impact the land asked for by the city in its annexation application to the municipal government board. When approved by the province, the annexed land area will be under the jurisdiction of the City of Lloydminster and impact future long-range plans for the growth of the city in the region. Well, in the talks, I haven't been at those meetings, but we talked about a whole bunch of things, joint planning, all this kind of stuff. So who's really in charge of this land? We're saying here it's under our jurisdiction. So what are we really saying?
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Now, the reason that was written there was to let the city know that the purpose of the joint growth study is actually to influence or impact our land ask when we go for annexation. Now, this is actually speaking to annexation. When the land is annexed to the city, then assessment for the city kind of increases because then that becomes part of the land that's going to be under the city's jurisdiction. But beyond or before that, though, the city is still going to be within the county until it's annexed.
City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I can sound was pretty good in the meetings that we were at. I think I know where the question you're asking is some of those definitions. I believe there was joint development area, joint growth areas, and some of that. So those are some of the definitions that we need to see clarity on throughout this upon re-entering the process. So I think that's one of our goals, is we need to get definitions and clarity around what those mean.
Your worship, if it's joint development, we don't have jurisdiction.
Right.
So this report to me is not correct. If it's saying we have jurisdiction, how do you figure that?
Well, I think that in what's written, the interpretation, so I think what was discussed at the meeting is what was summarized on June 25th, the INAC meeting. But until annexation is complete, wherever that jurisdiction of that land sits, resides with the appropriate municipal government. So today, any land that's within the city of Lloydminster's boundaries is in our control from the perspective of development.
It always has been.
It always has been, as is the county of Vermilion River.
Right.
Once we have established the annexation plan, and that's our goal here, is to reach a non-contested annexation with the county, then but some of that step will be to work through the joint growth study to get to that point. So as Sam and the city manager indicated, there's some clarification that needs to happen. But what we're proposing is simply going back into that growth study to get it completed to a document that we're comfortable with, and hopefully the county of Vermilion is comfortable with. That's the intention. That's the goal that we're working towards, to complete that.
That doesn't answer the question, Your Worship. In my mind, if we annex 1 quarter, or 10 quarters, or 10 sections, it's either city land or it's county land.
You're absolutely right, Councilor.
According to this report. And it says it's a city land. And we have jurisdiction. I don't know how much we're going to annex. Maybe half of what we started out to annex. I don't know, but the way this reads, it's just, this is the official record of the city, right?
No, it's simply, it's not, so basically it's information. So it is official to the point that it's information provided as part of the package, but the resolution itself is the actual what we'll record in these council minutes of today. So if a motion is passed to carry completely a growth study, but the particulars will be worked through the technical committee that's made up of administration.
So jurisdictions to be determined rather than...
Absolutely, and that's where, so this is the background information to it, but the intention is, and I think the administration is very clear on that, we've discussed that from our perspective, the INAC steering committee, as well as the technical side from our city, saying we need some clarity on that. That seems to be an area that needs more information. Councilor Dorsey, can you add to this?
If we're going down this road, what would the public think if they read this report? That's my
Okay. Councilor Dorsey first, and then Councilor.
I think we may be, or just a little ahead of ourselves, because to me the point of this activity is to re-enter the growth study. That will flesh out definitions and assumptions and kind of go back to square one part of it to say, okay, what are our basic assumptions? Do we not agree with them? Where will the city grow? Do we not agree with them? What area? And then once the growth study is finished, that will in a way inform what lands will be annexed, who will have control, who have ownership, what is the policy area in terms of who controls what, who provides servicing, all that fun stuff. And then that will also inform a new IDP is the goal. Because we have to renew our IDP every so often, and this would be the time when we do that. So this is just step one to get to the point where we can have those conversations that you're talking about, Councilor Baker. We have to enter the growth study so we can have a conversation about what those different areas are, what they need, whose control they ought to be, who could service them best. All those conversations will happen as part of the annexation negotiation that comes after the joint growth study. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, so the context of the governor's comment is the fact that when this is approved, or an annexation is made and it's approved by the province, then it becomes the land belongs to the city and expands where the land area is for the city, but not until then. This is in anticipation of that. But the focus of this report mainly is on the joint growth studies. This is only just saying, well, in case this one goes through and then we're able to go to an uncontested annexation, and we are actually able to annex, then this will, at least, then when annexation takes place, then this will increase the land base for the city. But the joint development area and the joint planning area, the convoluted dimension that was in it was actually what caused the city to pull back and say, now, we don't understand this. And I understand where Councilor Baker is coming from. It's just that what the reporting we're having here has very little bearing with that. It's only just in terms of now when we are able to get this done and we're able to annex this, it will increase the land base for the city.
Councilor Dacha.
Yeah, I was going to say the only part, and I'm still not sure where the disconnect is for Councilor Baker, because I think the study is, that's the only point where there's joint jurisdiction around the study process and the third party will review it. But part of the study and the wranglings, if you like, are to determine who decides what and where those pieces of property are. So we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves in terms of what that is all about. But I think in what I hear you saying is that if this property is annexed and it is under the purview of only the city, and what you're suggesting, in fact, is that it is not a joint jurisdiction when we annex it. So I mean, that's, we're getting ahead of ourselves even in that statement a little bit too. So there's some assumptions that we're going forward on. But based on the fact that from the MGA perspective, if the land is annexed, it belongs to us, that's our jurisdiction. So I don't see how the county is in any way influencing decisions when it's ours and it's annexed by us. I don't get that.
So,
I'm confused by that.
Yeah, it is a little confusing because one of the challenges was where the joint growth study got to the point when this council moved the resolution to withdraw. And that's why this has come back at this time, that we're at a point that we believe that there's potential to go back to that growth joint study, have some impact on where it goes, and in turn come up with a document that's acceptable to both parties. That's why this motion's come back here for this to go back into it, because as it sits, this council removed ourselves from that joint growth study in the fall of 2016.
Your Worship, I may just to close on this from my part. The only valid document that I know of, there's two, and one is the IDB, is a valid document, and the other one is we withdrew from the growth study. The rest of it is all nothing. And I think this report's wrong. If I read that, I'd be reading that and say, oh, really? We're in charge, we're in control. I wonder. So anyway, that's the end of it for me.
Councilor?
Yeah, I can understand where Councilor Baker's coming from. I think if we removed the when approved by the province, everything after that, then the statement would be true, because it is just getting ahead of itself, everything after that. Really, the joint growth study process will impact the land ask by the city in its annexation application. That's it. That's the point of this. Not everything after that. All that other stuff is totally separate from this discussion as to whether to be in the joint growth study or not.
Councilor Monroe.
And I just think the night that we did go over this joint growth study with both parties, I think for myself anyways, it was a huge eye-opener into the work that has been put into it. And I don't think that there's a point in really investing our dollars solely to find out that information that's already there. So this is just completing this growth study. I think financially it's the best aspect for all of us, and not only for the community. And not only that, the information's already there. So it really is redoing work that is already done. So by entering back into this agreement, it's just finishing off, which is pretty much already done, really.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to add to Councilor Monroe's point. I think she makes a great point, because a lot of money has been spent on this up till this point, and as you were discussing, the budget for this, if we were to do our own growth study, was going to be another $100,000, and we're not really counting in the future years what all the legal bills would have to be for potentially uncontested annexation. We're definitely being a lot more prudent with public dollars by going this approach. If we can agree to come to some sort of conclusion with our neighbors, it'll be a lot cheaper in the long run.
Absolutely.
I think that I appreciate, Sam, your comments in the report. Certainly there's pieces to this all falls together, because this will lead to the annexation discussions that this council is familiar with after we finish the joint growth study, which will lead to hopefully an application uncontested, which will lead to completion of annexation. So that there's a whole process that this just falls into that one piece of it. And I appreciate, Councilor Baker, your concern about what's being documented and what people take from it. I think that's what's important to remind people. For the information we receive a spool of information, is the term I'll use, yet one motion will move forward. So the information consists of a whole picture. And I think that, as I've heard, certainly sitting in this chair for almost 2 years, and I believe most of us, other than yourself, Councilor Baker, when there's a whole bunch of information that feeds into our decision moving forward. And I hope people realize that, like you say, when someone reads what they read for an information package, and I hope they sit and they listen to the discussion here, because simply reading a document in this package that I'm learning, as we all know, doesn't provide all the information that we get questions answered. So I hope that people realize that when they read a document, there's more to it. And as the gallery demonstrates, there's not a lot here, but we do free listing on the internet, and I know people do review it afterwards. So appreciate, Sam, the information for the whole picture, because there is where are we going with this? That's where the government's implication that you relate to goes to. It's there's bits and pieces that come together to make this whole thing a complete picture. And that's the challenge that we have, that we can't always show everyone everything, because we have council meetings running for days and days and days. But points well taken, Councilor Baker. Thank you, Sam.
So just as your worship, just a point of clarification. So I wasn't at the IANC or INAC meeting. Has the committee had an opportunity to discuss the meeting with council and camera at all at this point? And I'm just thinking again, it's those that were at the table are privileged in terms of knowing what the discussion went like, what it sounded like, and I think that's information that helps shape our decision as well. So I've had a bit of a follow-up to get a sense of that it was positive and the things are moving in the right direction. So maybe this is one of those things we need to bring back in camera to make sure everybody that who wasn't at the meeting has a sense of what's going on as well.
That's a full picture.
Yes.
I believe we had covered it, but
I was away, so I'm just asking. But I'll make that motion.
Okay, if you make that motion, Council.
Move that council authorize City of Lloydminster to proceed with the completion of the joint growth study with the County from Lloydminster.
Second, Councilor Monroe. Any further questions? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Sam. Councilor stepping out, look to the City Manager for 8.6.2.
Thank you, Your Worship. To discuss 8.6.2, whether our all-season park amphitheater rehabilitation, will ask Pete from our operations department to come forward.
Good afternoon, Pete.
Your Worship, councillors. So the Bud Mullen Amphitheatre is now 34 years old and has shown serious signs of deterioration. This project was put in place to address those that involved removing the wooden stone terracing of the concrete structure, recladding the stage and replacing the handrails along the edge, which are not to code and dangerous condition. We'll also upgrade the electrical and do some cosmetic upgrades to the ancillary building. The project was tendered in May as per our procurement policy, and two local companies, Craftex Builders and Bexon Construction bid. So the options that we're presenting is that Council award the Bud Miller All Seasons Park Amphitheatre Rehabilitation Tender to Craftex Builders of Lloydminster, Alberta for the amount of $424,258, excluding GST, and that the Mayor and City Clerk be authorised to sign and seal all necessary documents. In addition, Council approve a contingency allowance of 15% or $63,660.70 to be funded through the approved capital budget. Option 2, the council direct administration to bring forward more information prior to making a decision. This will result in a delay to the project. Or option 3, the council directs administration to cancel the capital project, which would result in the amphitheatre not being rehabilitated. The amphitheatre will further deteriorate and will require to be permanently fenced up.
Thank you, Pete. Questions or comments? Councilor.
Mr. Collins, Your Worship, I'm glad to see we're doing this. It's been shrouded in for some time now. Every time you walk by, you kind of wonder when. And, my walking partner asks me that every time. So I'm glad to be able to say we can actually move on it. Again, I think certainly some of the comments are shared about the vision and whatnot for it is understanding. I think getting on with it, and it's also under prices of which is good news for us. So those two projects today have come in the budget, which is good news for City Council and taxpayers. So.
I think, Pete, thank you for your report. Certainly, this is one for taxpayers' information. We did try to secure additional funding through the Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program, and we were unsuccessful. So this is one of those areas that does fall to the city solely. And Councilor Baker has shared with us the history of Ludmilla Park and numerous other meetings that this was a project that originally had the province involved, but they've since left us hanging on this one. So I think we have no choice to try and make the best out of the situation. It's a great structure, a great park, and this will just amplify, as the amphitheater does. It brings more things back to the park, and certainly it's not a catch-all for everyone, but it will certainly be well used, because I know when we first moved here 15 years ago, there was concerts in the park and good crowd gatherings on a Friday, Saturday night. We've missed that opportunity. I think this will be a great opportunity to put a mark back in the city, give it 30 years, we hope at least, of lifetime, if not longer, and move forward with that. Any other comments? If not, I'll look to council for direction. Councilor Buckingham.
The council will award the Bud Miller All Seasons Park Amphitheater Rehabilitation tender to Craftex Builders and Division of Legal Construction Limited of Lloydminster, Alberta, in the amount of $424,258, excluding GST, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. In addition, council approved a contingency allowance of up to 15% or $63,638.70 to be funded through the approved capital budget.
Seconder, Councilor Monroe. Call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Councilor Buckingham. As council's return, I'll ask City Manager to 8.6.3.
Thank you, Your Worship, to present the removal of the municipal utility land use designation of Austin Township from planning and development come forward.
Thanks again, Your Worship and Council. I'm here to request that Council approve the removal of the municipal utility MU designation on approximately 0.04 hectares, 0.10 acres of municipal utility U2 Plan E4B08853 within Northwest Quarter Section 1 Township 50 Range 28 west of the 3rd Meridian. The RM of Britannia, with the consent of Long Range Planning Department, has submitted an application to subdivide all of Parcel B, Plan 101362339, and part of Municipal Utility U2, Plan 84B09953, within Northwest Quarter Section 1, Township 50, Range 28, west of the 3rd Meridian, and part of Northwest Quarter Section 1, Township 50, Range 28, west of the 3rd Meridian, to dedicate as road, which will be 57th Street. Just to give you some history and make some connections and different projects coming together, on June 25th, 2018, Council approved the road maintenance agreement between the City of Lloydminster and the RM of Britannia. This agreement will pertain to the lands described above, once 57th Street becomes a legal road. The The RM of Britannia has submitted a subdivision application to their approving authority for a Husky collector substation adjacent to but outside the city boundary. That white box, just kind of to the east of that white box. After discussion with community planning, there's an existing 10-meter loose, it's not a road, it's a 10-meter parcel that's serving as access to this Husky substation, but it's determined that that will be no longer sufficient. After discussion between the Britannia, the approving authority, and the city, it was agreed upon that 18 meters would be sufficient. Our administration is currently in the process of processing that subdivision application. However, through the process, we noticed that a small part of the lands required were MU. In order to dispose of or remove this legal land designation, we will require a resolution of council. Since we're not selling the asset, it doesn't need to be a bylaw because once it's road, it will still be maintained under our existing infrastructure. I think it should, sorry, I lost my thought. Once we have this resolution of council as well as approval from our approving authority, the two joint items will go to both Saskatchewan Community Planning and Land Titles for registration. Once it is, there are utilities and infrastructure within this MU, but once it's dedicated as road, anything within those lands will be protected through that. As per the Lloydminster Charter, the city will have direct control and management over this road.
Thank you, Natasha. Questions, comments? Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's just kind of just more of a housekeeping item that came up as far as, you know, if you were in support of the MOU, in essence, you should be supportive of this changing of this land designation because it's just another technicality that needs to be updated.
Yeah, and for all of them to come together to make it all happen, this is just another step in the process.
The middle of the road.
We're changing, we are in the middle of the road, exactly. Any other comments or questions? Housekeeping. I'll look to council for direction. Councilor Thorson.
I move that council approve the removal of the municipal utility land use designation on approximately 0.04 hectares of municipal utility U2 Plan B4B08853 within Northwest Quarter Section 01-Township 50, Range 28, west of the 3rd Meridian.
Second, Councilor Baker, thank you.
Transformer off the road.
Any further comments or questions? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Natasha. Returning to the agenda, move to 8.7, Chief of Staff. I don't see anything noted this time. Number 9, correspondence or information. No. All right. Number 10, the mayor's and council reports. I don't have a written report to present to council at this time. Certainly, the summer has come upon us. We've had a great parade for the beginning of the Colonial Days parade. It was well attended. The city was represented numerous times throughout the parade. Great compliments to the team at the city for putting together the floats that they did. Thank you to the team again for the pancake breakfast on Thursday. Thank you to council for joining us. And I think we had well over 1,000 people attend, which was great. The weather was beautiful, the sun shone. The rest of the weekend, that's a different story. But from that perspective, there's lots of things going on. I want to welcome the Texas 4,000 riders to the city tonight. They'll be arriving this afternoon into our city from Texas on bicycles as they make their way to Alaska. We're joining them tonight to bring greetings and joining them for supper. And I believe the Rotary Clubs are sponsoring a breakfast tomorrow morning to send them off on their way. So again, community steps up very much for people traveling through our community. If there's any other reports or any comments from council they want to so note at this time. All right, I will move on to any other matters that this council needs to deal with at this time. Not seeing any, I'll move to the inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are media requests for yourself, Mayor Albers, as well as Councillor Thorson.
I'll look to council for
motion to recess.
Councillor Lewis, motion to recess, seconders. Councillor Thorson, all in favor? Opposed, carried.